The New Orleans Saints are already looking explosive with their young quarterbacks, but it's the efficiency and consistency that come with head coach Kellen Moore that will help them improve on offense. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, we get to go later on today to see our final day of Saints OTAs. I'll give you 3 players who would benefit from closing out from a strong final week before rolling into mandatory minicamp where more veterans will be present next week. We'll take a look at Derek Carr, who claims that he didn't take money from the Saints because he simply didn't want to take the Saints' money. What? And we're going to kick everything off with a look at Tyler Shough and Spencer Rattler, both of them making big plays, but it's going to be about consistency and efficiency brought upon by their head coach that will really help the offense improve. We got all that and much more for you on today's show. We appreciate you very much, whether it's your first time or your next time, being here with us this time, making us your first listen and being it every day or here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Head over to FanDuel.com today because new customers will get $200 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. The New Orleans Saints are starting to look like a big play factory when it comes to all of their highlights that they're sharing from OTAs and all those other things. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see with these young players, but it is going to have to be more than just the big play that helps this offense truly improve. It's about consistency and efficiency. So look, the Saints are sharing, clips and things like that. Spencer Rattler throws a touchdown deep down the field to Chris Olave. Then they share one later. Rashid Shaheed's down there somewhere. Tyler Shough connecting with Rashid Shaheed downfield on a big pass as well. And all that's fine and dandy, but you'll notice as you watch those videos, one thing is missing, and it's a very important thing. Have you spotted it? Do you know where I'm going here? It's the pass rush. No pass rush. It's 7-on-7s, right? These aren't team drills. There's no contact or anything like that. And so I've seen like a little bit of overreaction to the Saints defense is awful and all these other things. There's no pass rush. Like these drills are built to support the offense. This is the NFL, right? The NFL wants offense. This is what they do. So the big thing that I look at when it comes to all of it is that the good news for the Saints and for Saints fans is that if the protection is there up front, the route combinations, the quarterback's arm, the decision-making, the big plays can absolutely be there, but it's going to be more about just the big plays. Let's look at New Orleans versus Philly last year. Not the game, the Week 3 game. We will have some takeaways from that game in this, but I want you to understand from a big play perspective how close the Saints offense actually was to Philly's offense last year. And I know that sentence makes you want to smack me across my face and then check on me to make sure that I'm okay. But let me give you these numbers. The Philadelphia Eagles last year, when it came to 20-plus yard plays, that's what we consider explosive plays in the NFL. Sometimes you'll see sites that consider 20-plus yard passing plays explosive plays, but 15-plus yard rushing plays explosive plays. But typically speaking, and in a more general sense, we just consider 20-plus yard plays to be explosives. And so Philly had a lot of explosive plays last year, 49 explosive plays of 20 or more yards, but that still only tied them for 18th in the NFL. Remember, groups of ties are ranked by where the first place team in that tied group is. So you're skipping a bunch of numbers as you go through this. And so 49, putting them at 18th, not the most insurmountable, not the most explosive team, not the most anything when it comes to that, but still pretty solid, just outside the middle. New Orleans, 47, only 2 fewer than the Philadelphia Eagles, ranked 20th, because there was another team that had also had 47. And for frame of reference, the San Francisco 49ers led the league in this in 2024 with 66 20-plus yard plays, some good that did them. The Minnesota Vikings were at 64. The Detroit Lions were at 62. Those are the three teams that were over 60. The Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles were at 49. So not far away from the New Orleans Saints, but still both of those teams pretty far away from those that were at the top. So what does that tell you? It tells you that explosive plays can get you points for certain, but they're not as important as efficiency. Let's go a step further. Well, what about 40-plus yard plays? Well, that's where the Philadelphia Eagles were tied for third. There were two teams with 14, and then there were two teams, including the Philadelphia Eagles, with 12. So that ties them technically for third. The New Orleans Saints had 8, only 4 fewer, tied for 12th in that situation. There were teams that had 11, teams that had 10, teams that had 9, teams that had 8. And the Saints were amongst a big group of teams that had 8 that pushed them all the way down to 12th. And so the division between these two teams last year actually wasn't that far off in terms of explosive plays. And then sort of those double explosive plays, those big 40-plus yarders. I mean, a gap of 4 of those is pretty big, considering that the most in the NFL was 14, though. So that is worth mentioning. And, we can't say that 40-plus yard plays don't win games. I mean, the Week 3 game against the Saints and the Eagles, I told you I was going to bring it up. That game was won because of 2 60-plus yard plays that got the Philadelphia Eagles on the scoreboard. The only 2 touchdowns that they had that entire game came from those 40-plus yard plays. Now let's go a step further. Efficiency, 5.6 yards per play for the Philadelphia Eagles on offense last year, 5.3 for the New Orleans Saints on offense last year. But here's the deal, and this is where efficiency and consistency come into play. The Eagles ran 82 more plays and scored more than 100 more points than the New Orleans Saints. It wasn't because of the explosive plays, a gap of 2. It wasn't because of the 40-yard plays, a gap of 4. It was because the Eagles moved the ball more consistently, didn't turn the ball over as much, 15 and 19, and put more points on the board. That's where Kellen Moore comes in. I made a comment in yesterday's episode that the explosive plays, the big plays, the flashy plays are all good, but the NFL game is made up of 3 to 10 yard gains. And so when you have an offense that will consistently move 3 to 10 yards, I'd say 2 to 10 yards in some cases, that is a team that's probably going to win football games. That is good scheme. That is good coaching, right? Coaching the young quarterbacks to take that which the defense gives them. That's diversity in your offense so that you're catching defenses off guard. That is getting what you can get and doing it on a consistent and efficient basis. That is where Kellen Moore comes in. So could the New Orleans Saints be a big play factory in 2025, even if it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a playoff team? Absolutely. But when they want to build that contender, when they want to be back into considerations and conversations at the ends of seasons, it's those numbers that are going to be most important. 82 more plays, 100 more points, and then the difference of 5.6 and 5.3 yards per play shockingly makes an enormous difference. So for the Philadelphia Eagles, who, look, got some benefit from non-offensive touchdowns as well, we should highlight that, but the efficiency of their offense was off the charts. And in a way that New Orleans, where there wasn't that much difference in explosive plays, ended up having a massive gap, was that efficiency with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's where Kellen Moore comes in. And then he gets to enjoy the big play potential of his quarterbacks in Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shough, who are just lining up big plays all throughout OTAs. Coming up next, the former quarterback of the New Orleans Saints did an interview with Front Office Sports where he explained why he gave the New Orleans Saints $30 million back. And I want to explain to you why I'm still not quite buying it. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, and it is absolutely the place to go to get in on the NBA Finals, which tip off tonight. The Oklahoma City Thunder hosting Game 1 up against the Indiana Pacers. I love this Finals matchup. I love a small market matchup, and I love a matchup right now that everyone seems to be excited about. You can get in on all of that exciting action, whether you're taking a look at the money line, spread, props, player props. You can track player trends, same game parlays, live betting. They've got it all for you over at FanDuel. And if you've never used FanDuel before, now is a great time to get in on the action, because right now, new customers at FanDuel will get $200 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet over at FanDuel.com. You can get started today. The Oklahoma City Thunder 9.5-point favorite's a great place to put that first $5 down on that money line. Go ahead and make every moment more today with FanDuel, official sports betting partners of the NBA. All right, family, the New Orleans Saints former quarterback Derek Carr, officially his retirement posting on Tuesday afternoon. Going into Wednesday, he did an interview, or at least an interview had a release with Front Office Sports, who does a lot of great work. They do a lot of great work across the whole spectrum of the sports world around the finances of money, sales, contracts, all these other things. Great resource. And one of the things that they spoke with him about was, well, his departure from the NFL, his retirement, whether or not he would look to come out of retirement, where he seems pretty comfortable out on the beach with his kids and all these other things. But one of the big things that this interview kind of highlighted is, why give back $30 million? In case you missed it, when Derek Carr retired from the New Orleans Saints, they had already restructured a $10 million roster bonus, which was already guaranteed by the time that they restructured it, and then a $30 million base salary in order to push some money down the road, open up some salary cap space, all those other things. They made the decision to do that before they knew about, as we understand the timeline now with Derek Carr's shoulder injury and the degenerative issue and needing surgery and all these other things. As we understand what the timeline is said to be at this point, the Saints would have made that decision to restructure his contract right before they basically found out that, like, hey, the shoulder isn't necessarily in the place that it should be, despite a physical at some point, all these other things. So there's kind of all these little pieces to it. Now, here's the thing. When they restructured his contract and then he retired, it kind of put the Saints in a little bit of a bad situation, because it was like, well, they restructured the contract. Now they're not going to get any of that money back. So now they got to eat all this dead cap next year for a player that's not going to play for them this year, so on and so forth. Well, then things changed, right? The tune on that changed when we found out that the Saints were actually going to get that $30 million base salary back from Derek Carr, and that Derek Carr would instead just walk away with a $10 million roster bonus. So the Saints end up in a situation where they're getting $30 million back in some configuration over the course of the next 2 years. That's going to be up to the NFL. The NFL could either give them $1.255 million back this year and then give them the remaining $28.745 million back next year. They could instead kind of break it out and then say, okay, well, it was restructured over the course of 5 years, so you get 1/5 back this year, and then you get 4/5 back next year. In any case, it doesn't matter, right? It's $30 million over the course of the next 2 years, and that is going to be how the Saints will get that money back. So for the Saints, fine and dandy. Worked out great for them, right? They get to move on. They get to close the book on that chapter, that experiment that didn't work. They get kind of a new lease on life when it comes to their financial freedom because of this. They get to turn the page to the young quarterbacks, so on and so forth. But the big question was still looming. Why give $30 million back? I'll tell you, I got the opportunity to work with Derek Carr over the course of these 2 years. Relentlessly nice dude. On camera, off camera, nice dude. But is anybody $30 million nice is always my question. I don't necessarily think that anybody is $30 million nice without some kind of ulterior motive. Now, if you want to prove me wrong, feel free to be $30 million nice to me. I'll take it. But for the Saints, for Derek Carr, this always kind of felt like, I wonder what's going on. And look, we may never know, right? Like, we've openly wondered if there was anything litigious that maybe led to this. All speculation. All of it speculation. It could very well be that Derek Carr did do exactly what it is that he told Front Office Sports, which is that he simply didn't, quote, want to take the Saints' money. He knew he had to have surgery in order to play. If he was going to have surgery, he couldn't play for the year. After they restructured his contract for the money that was connected to that year, if he didn't have the surgery, there was no guarantee he'd be 100% at any point. And so even if he did play, he wouldn't necessarily be himself. And if he did play, it would be much later in the season. And so he just seemingly felt that simply it was the right thing to do and that it was part of the integrity. I think that's a solid story. I think that is an awesome idea. I think that's an awesome story. I think that if that is true, the New Orleans Saints should be absolutely grateful to Derek Carr for the fact that he said, you know what? I don't need this $30 million, which is an insane thing to think about. But it doesn't mean that it's not true. I'm just not so sure I buy it, if I'm being completely honest. And I'm not here to call anybody a liar. I'm speculating. I don't know. I feel like you only do that if it was a part of what needed to be done for the needs of an amicable split. Maybe he just simply thought it was the fair thing to do. Hey, I'm not going to be able to play. If I get this surgery, I can't play. If I don't get the surgery, there's no guarantee I'll be 100% again. There's no reason for me to take this money. It wouldn't be right. Bang. Gives the money back. Totally fine. But man, this really does just feel like one of those things that only happens because there's a certain list of things that lead to it. I don't know what that list of things is. I don't know if we'll ever know the real, truth, honest truth around all this. And maybe that is the truth. If I was the New Orleans Saints, I would say nothing about it. I'd leave it alone. Let him have the narrative. Let him be the nice guy. Leave it be if I'm the Saints. That's exactly what I would do. There's no reason for me to defend anything. There's no reason for me to change the narrative. There's no reason for me to say anything publicly about it. Thank you. Good night. You know what I mean? And so it's going to be that as we move forward. That's what will be in the history books. That's what will be in the annuals of the NFL history, all those other things. And it is an unprecedented situation that will not set a precedent for any other players moving forward. There's no doubt about that. Every other player, he even said in the interview, he was like, people were like, man, you're crazy for doing that. Like, I would never do something like that, yada, yada, everything. And Derek Carr just kind of said, hey, well, you're not Derek Carr, right? I'm Derek Carr. This is what I do. And so he did it. And so I think that means that there's two things that have to happen. If that is the truth, and we will accept that that is the truth. If that is the truth, there's two things that have to happen. Number one, the Saints should be grateful to Derek Carr that he took the opportunity to do that. And again, they should do that quietly. Don't say anything. Leave it alone. Yep. He said it. Perfect. And then move on. Two, most importantly, they got to make the right decisions with that new monetary boon that they have moving forward. They've got to make the decisions that are going to rebuild this team into the contender that Mickey Loomis wants it to be, that Kellen Moore wants it to be, that whoever the starting quarterback will be is going to want it to be, and that Saints fans want it to be as well. That to me is the most important next step, more than the truth around the $30 million. I don't need the 30 for 30 on the 30 million. I'm good. I'm fine. Whatever. I mean, I don't know. I'd watch it. It'd be interesting. There's no doubt about that. But don't need it. All good. Not concerned. What the Saints should be focused on next is how that $30 million sets up the next 5 to 10 year run of the new era of the New Orleans Saints, and doing everything that it takes to turn it into a 5 to 10 year era as opposed to a 3-year era or something like that, right? Like that is what the Saints' focus needs to be on moving forward. Am I convinced that Derek Carr is $30 million nice? No, but it's because I'm not convinced that anyone is $30 million nice. It's not even really about Derek Carr. Maybe I'm a little bit cynical in that way, whatever it might be. But the New Orleans Saints are now $30 million nicer than they were before in terms of the position that they're in financially, and they've got to make the best of that. And now they have that opportunity. Coming up next, the New Orleans Saints back on the field for OTAs in front of the media later on today. So I'm going to give you 3 players that will benefit the most from a strong finish to the OTA period. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. I'm going to give you 3 players that I think would benefit the most from a strong closeout to the OTA period, because after OTAs, we get into mandatory minicamps and training camp. You know what that means? The veterans are coming back to the field. So real opportunities for some of the younger guys that are looking to impress before the veterans get back. And some of those veterans are coming back because of coming back off of an injury. Some of those veterans are coming back because the OTA period is voluntary. Mandatory minicamp is, yes, say it with me, mandatory. And then, of course, training camp, you lose money if you don't show up to training camp. So typically the veterans are all there. So 3 young players that will benefit from a strong finish to OTAs before those veterans come back. Number 1, running back Kendre Miller. Number 2, Danny Stutsman, the rookie linebacker. And number 3, tight end Michael Jacobson. Very interesting story there. So let's start off with Kendre Miller here. See, I don't waste your time. I'm going to give you all 3. And now we're going to go through and do all 3 of them. See how I did that? Nice and easy. All right, Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller has looked like the smoothest and most fluid and most comfortable running back so far for the New Orleans Saints throughout OTAs. Now, that's including the idea here that like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a veteran, right? And so like, of course he's going to look a certain kind of way, but they've got other young talents. Velus Jones Jr., of course, Devin Neal, who they drafted this offseason, Valade, who has been here since the latter part of last season and is a guy that is really trying to push his way in here over the course of, doing community events and doing special teams and running back, like all this other stuff. And so like you have these other running backs that are all kind of making pushes as well, but there is something about the way that Kendre Miller just looks more comfortable. And I think that that's a solid thing for Kendre Miller, who was among the NFL's highest missed tackle force percentage last year, that has had some really, really impressive carries and touches, not just in the run game, but also in the passing game over the course of his 2-year career so far. Just has been dealing with injuries, right? It's been health stuff for him. And so now as he goes through OTAs, he's proving can stay on the field. He's proving the fluidity is still there. He's proving that speed is still there as well. Kendre Miller is a lot faster than people think that he is because he never got to run a 40, right? Because as he came into the NFL from TCU, speaking of injuries, he had the meniscus injury. Didn't participate in the combine, didn't run at his pro day, doesn't have a 40 time, all those other things, and is much faster than I think that people realize that he is. And now he rolls into an offense that's going to allow him to do more of what it is that he did in college, while also challenging him to come out of that box a little bit as well, utilizing him as a pass catcher, getting him in more outside run situations, allowing him to be able to utilize that breakaway speed. But it's his one-cut ability to hit a hole and break away, breaking tackles on the way, that made him a draftable prospect back 2 drafts ago. And so for Kendre Miller, before Alvin Kamara shows up and starts taking a bunch of snaps, before Devin Neal pushes along, before Clyde Edwards-Helaire pushes along, before any of these other running backs push along, Kendre Miller closing out OTAs with a strong showing could be a massive benefit for him. Danny Stutsman, the Oklahoma linebacker drafted in this year's draft, was a guy that was near the top of Dane Brugler's linebacker position rankings and all those other things as an inside linebacker. You're talking about a guy right now that is bringing so much energy to this defense, that is so fun to watch, that has so much fun doing whatever it is that he's doing, and is really good at it too. He moves well, gets sideline to sideline quickly, understands the game, understands how to read play flow, has a great football IQ, good leadership talents as well. We'll see more of that as he comes along throughout his career. But right now, Demario Davis was like there early in the second week, according to some videos. We did not see him. Media did not see him each of the Thursdays that we were there. Doesn't mean that he wasn't there. He just wasn't on the field when we were watching in the portion of practice that we got the opportunity to see. And so we've gotten to see a lot of Danny Stutsman, Pete Werner, Nephi Sewell. And I spoke a little bit about Danny Stutsman as one of the 5 players that we're watching in yesterday's episode going into this final day of OTAs. A big part of the reason why is because you kind of want to see him close out strong before Demario Davis comes in, and then maybe we start seeing more Demario Davis and Pete Werner than we will see Danny Stutsman with first-team defenses and things like that. Now, the good news for Danny Stutsman is that if the Saints go about things the way that it feels like they're going to go about things, which is going to be a real focus on keeping their players healthy throughout the offseason. What do I mean by that? We're already seeing evidence of that with Cam Jordan participating during the first week of OTAs, but not seen during the second week of what I'm talking about is when media was present, right? We didn't see him during that second Thursday. And so rest, right? Opportunities for players to kind of come and go. The great work that Ted Rath is doing, the director of sports performance, who is making sure these players aren't being overworked. The Saints worked pretty hard the first 2 days of OTAs. So the third day of OTAs, OTA day 3, our first Thursday out there, they did a little bit less. They moved a bit faster so they can kind of get through things, but they did that in such a way that it didn't overwork or overload the players. So thinking about all that, and considering the fact that during OTAs, when all other teams or a lot of other teams are doing 11 on 11 full team drills, the Saints are just doing 7 on 7s. They're doing a good job scaffolding everybody and pacing everybody so that they don't overwork and end up with injury. So going into training camp, it seems likely that those veteran rest days will be parsed out throughout those weeks. And so Danny Stutsman will still likely see those opportunities with both Demario Davis and Pete Werner are likely to see some rest days around that time, certainly Demario Davis. And then finally, tight end Michael Jacobson, not a player that we talk about very much on the show, not a player that gets talked about very much at all. Former basketball player, big-bodied guy, one of the taller tight ends on the roster, and has had some nice moments, good completions and a good connection between there seems to be good chemistry in particular with Spencer Rattler, but he's had some good connections with both quarterbacks. The big-bodied tight end is a good seam stretcher, good at attacking the seams, good field stretcher as well, good in the short, intermediate, and deep areas. Developing, I'm sure, as a blocker and all these other things. The big thing you got to do as a young player, but he's also been around the NFL for long enough now. He's been with the Saints for the past couple of seasons and has typically been a bit of a training camp star. And so now before guys like Foster Moreau make it back to the field, Dallin Holker makes it back to the field, and then potentially, I'm not betting on it, but potentially Taysom Hill makes it back on the field. Michael Jacobson, lots of opportunities for him to catch some eyes. All right, so those are the 3 guys I think that will benefit the most from a strong finish to OTA. Speaking of OTAs, tomorrow's episode, everything you need to know about today's OTA practice. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us a party day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. If you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.